Let's turn a piece of foam into solid aluminum. I started off by carving out a pattern using my CNC router. I used the CNC to get precision cuts. I carved two pieces, one for each side. Both sides are not the same. After I finished carving both halves, I then had to glue them together. For this, I'm using Aleene's Fast Grab Tacky Glue. In order to get most of the surface covered with glue, I applied the glue to the perimeter of the pattern first. Once I went all the way around, I then added glue to the middle. Once the glue has been applied, I then put both halves together, pressing all around the pattern, making sure the glue has contact with both sides. After the glue is dried, I then use sandpaper to add some finishing touches, like rounding the edges and adding in some texture to make it look more realistic. When casting with foam, it's good to coat the foam with plaster. This is just watered down wall plaster. At the end, it will give it a better surface finish. Before applying the plaster, you should spray soapy water over top of the foam. It helps remove any air bubbles from your casting. I started by drizzling the plaster over the foam, but then ended up dunking it into the plaster. You can see how thick it is over the foam. Now that the plaster has dried, I'm ready to cast it. I'll be placing it into a container and filling it with sand until it reaches the top. This is just regular dry sand, it's nothing special. Shortly after, the sand will start to hold the foam in place. Continue adding the sand until it reaches the top. When it does, vibrate the container to get the sand in all the nicks and crannies of the pattern. When you have finished, add the pouring basin over the foam, pressing it down about an inch. This will contain the molten aluminum so it doesn't spill everywhere. Now it's time to start melting the metal. Today, I'll be using some ingots I made a few weeks back. If you're interested in seeing that video, the link will be in the description below. You can see that the larger ingot just fits. For today's melt, I'll be using the Castmaster Light GG5000 propane furnace. It shouldn't take too long to melt down this aluminum. So while we wait, let's just take a good look at how beautiful the day is to be outside melting metal. When you see the furnace is red hot, you know it won't be long until the metal is fully melted. With foam casting, it's quite amazing on what happens. When we pour the molten aluminum into the basin, it instantly starts to vaporize the foam, and the molten aluminum rushes in to take its place. While this is happening, we need to make sure that we are pouring a steady stream of molten aluminum so that we can keep the basin full. Sometimes it's hard to see, but be careful and keep pouring slowly until you see that it isn't taking any more aluminum. Once the level of the basin stops sinking and starts rising, you know it's time to stop pouring. Let the aluminum cool for about 15 minutes and the metal should be hard enough to pull out of the sand. Now you can see the styrofoam pattern you started with is now solid aluminum. Since the casting turned out well, I'm going to scratch off the burnt plaster to get a closer look. It appears that the guard around the trigger didn't fill in all the way. Luckily, I know a guy that can weld aluminum and patch that right up for me. But first, I'm going to give this a better cleaning with a wire wheel on my Dremel. Now that the guard is welded and connected, I'll need to file away the high spots and shape it to look like it wasn't even welded. Finally, we need to cut off the sprue. Now we have an excellent looking Glock 45X replica made of solid aluminum. Alright guys, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment below, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.